What happens when one of the most respected midfielders of his generation walks into a studio expecting a normal interview, but ends up facing something entirely different? The result is a live moment that no one in the room or watching at home will ever forget, a moment that pulled the curtain back on the games some hosts play and how far a football legend will go to defend his dignity. Tonight we're looking back at the confrontation between Luka Modrić and Rio Ferdinand, a clash that revealed more than anyone expected and sent shockwaves through the football and media world. The night started like any other, inside a sleek London studio. The audience was buzzing. They were moments away from seeing Luka Modrić, a man whose career has spanned decades. Clubs, trophies, moments that have shaped modern football fans. Were excited to see him in a more personal setting, sitting across from Rio Ferdinand, who was known for his charm, his edge, and his ability to dig deeper than most. Luka walked in with quiet grace, dressed sharp, modest, as always giving a small wave to the crowd before settling into the chair. The two men greeted each other, and at first the exchange felt like what everyone expected: a polite conversation, a football icon speaking on his new documentary. One that many were already calling the most intimate look at his life yet. But even in those early moments, there was something in Rio's tone that felt off. His words came with a sharpness, his grin didn't quite reach his eyes. "Welcome back. Luka, been what, 3 years since you've sat down in a setting like this?" Luka nodded. "Yes, about that long. It's good to be here. Thank you again." Rio leaned forward. 3 years, a lot can change in that time, especially with everything that's gone on with you. The crowd laughed, but it wasn't the light laugh of comfort. It was uneasy. Something about the way he said it made everyone sit up a little straighter. Luka didn't flinch. "Life moves fast. I'm here to speak about the project, the work behind it. It's something special for me and for everyone who helped bring it to life." But Rio wasn't interested in the project. Not yet. He waved it off casually. Yeah, the film will get there. But come on, I think everyone here wants to hear about the other stuff. The real stuff. The more colorful sides of your story. For a brief moment, Luka's face gave something away, a flicker of discomfort, but it passed just as quickly, replaced by his usual calm and thoughtful demeanor. "I've always believed in letting the football speak, letting the work do the talking. That's where the truth is." Rio let out a laugh, loud, dismissive. "Come on, Luka, we know you better than that. The audience wants the real Luka. Modric, not the quiet philosopher. Give us something real." Suddenly the mood in the room changed. It wasn't light. It wasn't fun. The air felt tight. The crowd sat more still now. Luka kept his posture upright, unbothered. "I'm not sure what you're asking for. I'm here to share something that meant a lot to us. This project deserves the spotlight. Right? Right?" Rio interrupted, now more direct. "This is the film where you're portrayed as the misunderstood genius." "Yeah, sounds familiar. A little too familiar. Maybe a bit of typecasting." Don't you think the tension in the room spiked? No one laughed this time. Rio had stepped into dangerous territory and everyone knew it. The cameras turned to Luka, who didn't answer right away. He looked across the table with a long, measured stare. "You know, Rio," he finally said slowly, "one thing I've always valued about interviews is when they're built on honesty and respect. When there's a space for real conversation, that's when something special happens." He let the word respect hang for a second, but Rio didn't slow down, or maybe he just didn't want to hear it. He flipped his cards, spoke again, voice louder, more forceful. "Let's talk about your attitude on set. I've heard you were hard to work with, kept people waiting, caused delays, even cost some productions, serious money." The words landed hard. The audience shifted uncomfortably. This didn't feel like an interview anymore. It felt like something else, something designed to provoke. Luka didn't respond right away. His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes cooled, like a door slowly closing. "I've always shown up with full commitment," he said calmly. "Sometimes things happen on set, delays, misunderstandings. That's part of any project, but I've never disrespected the people I work with. Rio leaned back, smiling like he knew something. The rest of the room didn't. Sources say differently, mate. Said you went missing for hours on one shoot. They had to shut down production until someone found you in your trailer. Luka paused, his hands folded neatly in his lap. It's easy to throw out claims when there's no one to challenge them, but those who know me know the truth. I care deeply about the people I work with. The crowd didn't know how to react. Half were waiting for a punchline. The other half just wanted the tension to end. Rio chuckled, trying to lighten the mood, but it only made it worse. Come on, Luka. Don't act like this is some courtroom. It's just chat, but if you've got nothing to hide, why get so defensive? Luka leaned in slightly, voice quiet but deliberate. I'm not defensive, I'm just not here to feed drama. I've seen what that game leads to, and I have no interest in playing it for a second. Rio didn't speak. He stared at Luka as if trying to decide whether to push harder or pull back. Eventually, he went with the former lookmate. You've built a reputation as a genius, but also as someone who's difficult behind the scenes. Not everyone gets both, and maybe people are just starting to ask, which version of you is the real one? Luka didn't blink. Maybe both, he said finally. Maybe that's what it means to be human. The room was silent. No laughter, no coughs, no shifting. Just quiet. Like everyone understood that something deeper had just been said, but Rio wasn't done. He reached for a final card. Fine. Let's talk legacy. Then, because a lot of people think your best years are behind you and you're just clinging to the spotlight with documentaries and appearances, trying to stay relevant while younger players take your place. The jab was sharp and everyone knew it. Luka looked straight ahead. His voice, steady legacy, isn't something you chase, it's something you leave behind when you do your work with heart. I didn't come here to be reminded of time passing. I came to talk about a project that reflects who I've been and what I still stand for. Rio tried to smile again, but it didn't land. The audience wasn't with him anymore. The energy had shifted. People had come to see a football legend speak about his life. Instead, they got something else. Something raw, something uncomfortable. As the segment drew to a close, Rio shifted in his seat, clearly aware the interview hadn't gone the way he expected. Maybe he thought he could corner Luka, get him to crack. But Luka didn't play along. He never raised his voice, never lost his poise. He just sat there delivering answers that cut deeper than any outburst ever could. The outro music played, and the credits rolled, but the tension didn't leave the room. Not right away. The footage went viral within hours. Fans and critics alike dissected every moment, every glance, every line. What started as a simple interview had become something else entirely. Some called it an ambush. Others called it brave television. But everyone agreed on one thing. It showed a side of both men no one was ready for. After the episode aired, things moved fast. Clips of the exchange dominated social media, with users splitting into camps, some defending Luka, calling him composed, dignified, refusing to stoop to cheap shots. Others backed Rio, claiming he was just doing his job, asking the tough questions, the ones no one else had the nerve to ask. Meanwhile, mainstream media tried to spin the story in every direction. Was it a breakdown in the format of traditional talk shows? Was it a calculated risk by Rio to boost ratings? Or was it something deeper, a moment that revealed the cracks behind the polished surfaces of celebrity culture inside the industry executives were scrambling? The network hadn't expected the backlash or the sudden spotlight on their late-night lineup. Producers on other shows began reevaluating their approach to high-profile guests, wondering if the old formula of laughs and light jabs had finally worn thin. Luka, for his part, remained mostly silent. He didn't post any statements, didn't give interviews, didn't respond to the headlines. He returned to his quiet routines, promoting his project through smaller, more intimate channels, talking about the work, not the moment. But there was no avoiding it. The confrontation had changed something, and not just for him. Fans who had followed his career for years said they saw a new side of him, someone who had matured, who understood the cost of fame, and chose grace over fire, someone who wouldn't let the noise dictate the narrative. Rio, however, leaned into the chaos in the following episodes. He made subtle references to the incident, laughing it off, brushing it aside, treating it like another moment of good TV. But there was something in his delivery that felt strained, forced, like he knew deep down he had crossed a line one night during a new episode. He joked about being the guy who made Luka Modrić uncomfortable. It got a few laughs, but the moment fell flat. The audience didn't bite like they used to. Something had shifted and not in his favor. Behind the scenes Rio was facing pressure. Sponsors had raised concerns, longtime collaborators questioned his approach, and internally, the network debated whether to step in or let it play out. Public opinion was unpredictable, and no one wanted to make the wrong call. Then came the article. A respected journalist published an in-depth piece dissecting the interview, not with sensationalism, but with nuance. It explored the power dynamics between guest and host, the blurred lines between entertainment and exploitation, and the quiet strength Luka had displayed by not playing into the spectacle. The piece went viral, not because it was dramatic, but because it was thoughtful. It gave people a new lens through which to view the incident, and suddenly, Rio wasn't just a host asking tough questions. He was a man who had let ambition override empathy. Luka was asked about the article during a small press stop. He paused for a moment, smiled gently and said, "I've always believed that silence speaks loudest when it's needed the most." And with that, the story evolved again. It wasn't just about one night on a talk show anymore. It was about respect. It was about control. It was about the thin line between curiosity and cruelty, and who gets to decide which is which. The fallout continued in subtle ways. Rio's next few episodes saw a drop in viewership. The energy in the room felt different, like the audience wasn't sure whether to laugh or hold their breath. The charm that had carried him for years now seemed hollow, like a mask slipping out of place, and though Rio tried to regain his footing, tried to steer things back to normal, it was clear that something had changed. The interview with Luka Modrić had become a reference point, a watermark for what not to do. As the weeks passed, the noise around the incident began to fade, but the impact didn't. It lingered in small ways in how other interviews were approached, in how stars chose their platforms more carefully, in how viewers started looking past the jokes and watching what was really happening beneath the surface. Rio tried to reframe the narrative he posted behind the scenes, photos, clips from rehearsals, moments that painted him as relaxed as someone just having fun with friends, but those who watched closely could see the difference. The energy wasn't the same. The confidence that once seemed effortless now felt studied. Meanwhile, Luka continued his quiet press tour, doing interviews with journalists who respected the art of conversation, who asked about the themes in his project, the choices he made, the message he hoped people would take from the story. Those interviews went viral too, but in a different way. People shared them, saying, "This is how you treat someone with respect. This is how you let someone speak without trying to corner them or turn their story into spectacle." One clip showed Luka talking about the role and how it had challenged him emotionally. It was honest, vulnerable, and full of quiet wisdom. The kind of moment that reminded people why they admired him in the first place. Some fans said that night on Rio's show had actually elevated. Luka made people see him not just as a footballer or celebrity, but as a man who understood the value of restraint, of protecting your own dignity. Even when pushed in private circles within the industry, the interview was now required. Viewing for up-and-coming hosts, producers used it as an example of what happens when you let ego override empathy. When you forget that guests aren't props for entertainment, but people with boundaries, stories, and pride. Rio eventually issued a brief statement. Not an apology exactly, but something close. He said he respected Luka and regretted. If the conversation came off more aggressive than intended, he called it a learning experience and promised to reflect on how he approaches difficult topics. Some accepted it, others weren't convinced. They felt it was too little too late. a public relations patch over a deeper crack. Luka never commented on that response. Instead, he continued to let his work speak for him. The film he was promoting ended up becoming a quiet success, critically acclaimed, praised for its depth and subtlety, much like the man who brought it to life. And though the incident would always be a footnote in his story, it didn't define him. It simply revealed what was already true, that Luka Modrić carried himself with grace, that he valued substance over spectacle, that in a world obsessed with drama, he still believed in the power of calm presence. As for Rio, he carried on, but with fewer smirks, fewer jabs, and perhaps a quieter voice. Not because he was silenced, but because he had been reminded of something important, that the strongest moments in television don't come from conflict, but from connection. And in the end, that's what people remembered, not the clash, but the calm, not the provocation, but the poise,